Publish, Position, Profit, Episode 3.
Helping experts and entrepreneurs share their message with the world so that they can build a successful business doing something they love, live life on their terms, and inspire others. Welcome to Publish, Position, Profit with your host, John Ty.
Hey, John Ty here, and welcome to the show, and I'm very excited to introduce an amazing guest to you today. His name is Nick Unsworth. Now, Nick's journey as an entrepreneur is a real roller coaster story and a true testament to perseverance. And I'm not going to give too much away because I want to let Nick tell you a little bit about his story himself. But let me just give you Nick's brief bio. So, Nick is a serial entrepreneur, business coach, and host of the #1 Entrepreneurial Inspiration Show on iTunes, Life on Fire TV. As CEO of LifeOnFire.com, his mission is to inspire the masses to do what they love, relentlessly pursue their passion, and live the dream. Nick sold a business by 30 years old, coached over 1,750 entrepreneurs, and consulted with clients including New York Times bestselling author John Assaraf, Keller Williams Real Estate, Safeco Insurance, and many more. And I'd just like to add to that Life on Fire, which is Nick's show, which is a video podcast, is how I got to know about Nick when I became a fan of the show and started watching it earlier this year. And Nick's done such a great job of getting his message out with Life on Fire, and it's an amazing message, by the way, that I knew I had to get him on the show to share with you how he's done that. So, Nick, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, man, I'm really, really excited and fired up, so I'm honored to be here, so thank you for that.
Great. Thank you for coming on. So let's get on with things. The way we start the show, Nick, is with what I call the getting to know you round. So, I've just given the listeners a brief overview, but that really doesn't do justice to your story and what you've achieved. So could you tell us in your own words what it is you do and what you're working on right now?
Yeah, perfect. So my, mission is to help other entrepreneurs live their version of the dream. And so what that entails is really, it's about loving what you do for work every single day. And really enjoying the journey and enjoying the process. And so that is, that's my stand, that's my mission. And so for me, I spend my days as a business coach. So life for me right now is I really just completely enjoy and love the podcasting world. So I've just had so much fun with it. It's an amazing community. And, so going out and doing interviews. So our style is kind of MTV Cribs, in their office or in the entrepreneur's home. And I got to get over the pond to come hang with you one day. And
very welcome.
It's one of those things where, it's unique, it's different. So I love doing the video stuff. And that's, meant to inspire and to attract the right audience to us. And then from
Which
there,
it does, by the way. It's great content, but it's very inspirational stuff too.
Well, thank you, man. And so we're putting a lot of energy and hard work into that, and it's fun, and I really thoroughly enjoy it. And then from there, our model is, every quarter we do a 20-day challenge, and so we'll teach a skill like, entrepreneurs, we all need more sales. We all need more leads and cash flow, so we'll teach a 20-day challenge, and it might be on Facebook advertising. We might do one on podcasting. We might do one on video marketing. And so we do that once a quarter. And then afterwards, we'll typically, the folks that are really hungry and committed to their success, they kind of stand out. They kind of identify themselves.
Yeah.
So we've got this, thriving community of what we call fire starters, and it's our coaching program. So we've got 2 levels, with different amounts of deliverables and services and masterminds. And, and then at that point, people, will join at the elite level. It's application only. And that's where we've got a roster of coaches, and we pour our heart and soul, and, we do cross promotions for some of our our elite clients. And basically we help them live their version of the dream faster, and that's through online marketing, that's through networking, that's through relationships and product launches and all kinds of cool stuff. So
that's great. So, okay. So as entrepreneurs, one of the things we learn as much from, if not more, is our failures as opposed to our successes. So, I mentioned in the intro that you had a kind of a roller coaster ride to get where you are today. So maybe could you share with us a little bit of a story of struggle and something you've had to overcome, and maybe one or two of the lessons that you learned from that, and you're getting to where you are today?
Oh man, and you talk about a bit of a challenging understatement, man.
See, I know what's coming.
It's so crazy. I mean, it's like I'm thinking in my head, which one? You know what I mean? And that's what's crazy is that, and I like to say this, that every entrepreneur has a number of failures before they're going to have this supreme life and, what I call a life on fire. And I think about it as like the variable X, right? So we all have X is our number, or, is the number. And for me, that number of failures is actually 11. For some people, it's actually some people that, you never know. Someone gets lucky. Someone has just divine talent, and their X equals 0. And the first business they launch, they crush it, and then they make it look easy. But and that's one of these things where it's like, I had to endure 11 failures to finally step into my purpose and step into my passion. I thought selling the business was going to be, the end all be all, and it wasn't. It was actually quite the opposite, But so out of the 11, if I dip back to one, this one was pretty. This one I learned a lot from. So it was a business that I had called the New Perks Card. It was the NU Perks Card. And so what was cool about it is that I was just coming fresh off of a failure in the real estate industry, which on that one was actually due to the market crashing. And I was, in most cases, you could consider it successful in real estate, but the market just, it destroyed, everybody, So I came back from that, and I moved from San Diego back to Connecticut, where I grew up. And, it was one of these situations where I was kind of licking my wounds from this, real estate disaster. And I had, made a few bucks. And so I was like, you know what? Never again will I work and do something that I just straight up didn't enjoy. I was in the mortgage industry, doing commercial lending, and it just wasn't fun. But I figured it was like, you know what? If I can bank a bunch of money, I will have fun later. And that to me is that's a lesson that, that's one of these things where, how, do you want to sacrifice 5 years of your life and say, I'm going to do a job I hate because I'll make money and then I'll have fun later? That's not a good plan. That's what sets you up for ruining relationships and having stress and getting illnesses based from stress. And, tomorrow's not guaranteed. We could be taken off this earth literally any day. And, and why on earth would we spend our energy doing something we don't like? So, coming into the New Perks Card, I was fresh off a business I did not like. And that was the first lesson is, when you don't like it or you're not having fun and it's tough and you're not good at it, your odds of being successful are, almost impossible. So, I came back to Connecticut, had a few bucks, and said, you know what? I don't like the mortgage side. I'm going to do the real estate side, even though the market timing was horrible. You're talking 2008. But I like people. I like the idea of real estate. I love watching Flip This House. I was allured by like the money and like flipping houses and like the lifestyle. And on the real estate side, I did get, I thought I would enjoy that more than mortgages. So, part of my flaw was that I knew that it wasn't like my main passion, right? So I was going to be a realtor, and I'm thinking, all right, I read the books. I knew, I read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent by, Gary Keller, which is phenomenal, even if you're not in real estate. And I looked at it and said, that's the recipe, right? I need to have a database of 5,000 people, and with that, I'll be able to generate enough referrals to build $1 million real estate business. So my plan to get there was a business that I created called the New Perks Card. And in it, the branding was very similar to my real estate branding. And what it was this truly was a business that I was 100% passionate about, and I truly felt was a purpose, right? So, and the way it worked was I pounded the pavement. And I walked into businesses for a couple of months and walked in, and I got thrown out. I had like crazy people ignoring me as I'm standing in the restaurant for an hour and a half, waiting for them. And it was brutal. And I walked into these businesses and said, hey, my name's Nick Unsworth, and I created a concept called the New Perks Card. And all I'm asking for is for you to put a discount on this card. And then, I'm going to take the burden of marketing it. and I've got a $25,000 ad budget. I've got a $25,000, budget for, other grassroots marketing. And so I'm putting $50,000 into marketing this thing in the community. And if you put your discount on here, I'm going to help you get new foot traffic, guaranteed. Like, I'm going to distribute these things all throughout, the town. Mm-hmm. And so it was hard. People like, what's the catch and this and that, and everyone, But long story short, I got 45 businesses on this card, and you could walk into a restaurant with my new Perks card, and on the window it says, "We proudly support the new Perks card of West Hartford," and it was the shape of a business card, but it folded like an accordion. It was die cut. It tucked into itself. You put it in your purse or wallet. It was it looked great. And so for discounts, you're talking half off a bottle of wine every Tuesday at one of the coolest restaurants in town. You're talking dry cleaners, grocery store, jewelry store, and it was good for a year. So what I created was something that added value for business owners, and then it added value for consumers. And so part of the reason this was a passion project was because I was really discouraged that it was so hard for people to give. And so as this was happening, my girlfriend at the time, she was a parent. She worked with autistic kids. We did a fundraiser for her school to raise money for autism. And it was pulling teeth. I couldn't get literally any of my friends or family to even cough up $10. And it was like, are you kidding me, guys? Like, support Shannon, give a little bit, shoot, I didn't have a whole lot to go around, but I gave, and it was that, right? So, and it was really sad that people are so reluctant to give, So I looked at it and said, all right, if I've got this Perks card and it benefits business owners and it benefits consumers, this is going to be the mechanism that provides money for charity. I'm going to convince people that it's cool to give. And so what happened is that when a consumer bought the card for $20 and they're stoked. They're like, wow, I'm going to save hundreds per year. And then from there, as they're checking out, there's a drop down, and they chose where their donation went to. So they put in $20, and then half of it directly went to a charity. And I got all the big ones, which was another, tough, feat to get them on there. Yeah. Don't use my logo, this and that, and everyone's skittish.
I'm trying to give you money.
I know. It was unbelievable. And I'm like, I don't even care about your logo, but all I'm doing is I'm going to mention your website, trying to give you money. So I set this whole thing up. It was a very laborious, tough project, and I get it rolling. I go to a chamber of commerce, and they do these ribbon cuttings here in the States, and the mayor's there, and the thing starts to blow up. You're talking, I'm on, the Connecticut morning TV show, and and it just starts to blow up. People were like, man, this is cool. Like, for a minute there, people that started to count me out. I had some friends and some family that they started to lose their faith in me. Like, they started to believe that I was going to make it. Why don't you get a job like your brother? That kind of thing. And this thing hit, and it was like, wow, what a cool idea. It's a win-win-win, right? And so things, I started getting that publicity. I started, building that brand positioning, and it was like I was in all the papers, and it was awesome, right? So it started to grow, and it was like a dream come true. Like, I was starting to raise money. And then all these business owners that I had signed up, to be on the card, I'm talking with them on a regular basis, giving them updates, and they're like, man, I think you got something here. You should take it to the next level. You should advertise. And so, here I go headstrong into, okay, I'm going to hire the advertising company that everyone's recommending. And 4 business partners in that ad company, 25 years of experience each. We sit down. I literally had a 10-page marketing plan in my hand. They took it, and just picture this. I'm going to this boardroom, like big old conference room, right? The big, wooden table and the whole nine. And they take my marketing plan, and picture a guy in a swivel chair just swiveling around and dumping the damn thing in the trash,
right.
And I'm just thinking, well, that's crazy. And they're like, well, we won't be needing this, and I'm like, well, what about like online marketing, or what about grassroots stuff like, PR? And I seem to have been doing pretty good with that. And they said, you know what? They said, Nick, you need to do TV commercials. That's how businesses grow. We've been doing this for, a combined total between everyone in the room, 100 years of experience, been in business for how long, and they weren't willing to listen, right? And they just said, we have your best interest in mind. We get a percentage, so, doesn't it make, so trust us. And this is one of my biggest, realizations is that in that moment, I totally pushed back, and I just didn't believe it. Like, I had a hard time justifying it. I'm like, it's so broad, it's going to advertise to the whole state of Connecticut. My card is good in one town. No one's going to drive an hour, to buy this new Perks card and drive an hour to West Hartford, to save on groceries, So it was one of these situations where, I didn't really, I didn't see what they saw, and I chose, I made the decision ultimately to not trust my gut and to think that, at the time I was 26, maybe I should get out of my own way. I should trust them. And I put my faith in them, and it's one of these things where, no one is ever going to build your business for you. It's the sad truth. I mean, it really is all us as entrepreneurs, and we've got to be willing to fight the battle, and we've got to be willing to go ahead, full steam at that. And so, what ended up happening is, we go on to produce the commercial. We go on to, create the animated commercial. We go on to start to run the ads, and I'm excited, and the ads go out, and you're talking 10 grand for production. You're talking 10 grand a week. And after the first week, we moved 14 carts. Like the number 1 Ford, man. Like 1 Ford. Like what? And I'm freaking. I'm like, guys, like what's going on? I got 14 cards, and one check in the mail. Someone wants to buy the card using a check, like, and I'm freaking out. I mean, I'm in this thing for 20 grand, and these guys look at it and say, Nick, we've never been in this situation before. We've never had a client, debating us like this early in the process. It's frequency. Like, you've got to keep at it. This is how advertising works. You've got to stay in front of them. It's brand building and getting in front of them. And, aren't we driving traffic to your website? And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's the whole state no one's buying. So, made the foolish mistake of having blind faith and trudging on for another couple of weeks, burned through about 40 grand of cash. And so it was at that moment where I pulled the plug and everything. And it was just, it just totally like decimated my finances, and here I was trying to do something so good for the community and help and give back. And then I feel like I just kind of got robbed a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's no one else's fault but my own. And that's one of these things as entrepreneurs. If you're an amateur, you blame other people. If you're a pro, you take responsibility. And I took responsibility for my actions right then, right there. And I said, you know what? What is the blessing behind this? Because every failure, there is a monstrous story and there's a big blessing. And I needed to figure out what it was. Now, in the beginning, as I was just financially screwed, trust me, you have a hard time seeing it that day, that week. But if you really just work on your mindset and you step outside yourself and look down, I'm like, all right, well, where's the blessing? So once that thing was done, what happened is I keep getting traffic to the website. And I keep getting traffic, and I'm like, what is going on? I literally, imagine this, I could not figure out why my traffic was increasing on my website. This was, we didn't have robust analytics. It was, the web guys, janky analytics, and so I'm freaking out. I call up the advertising company. Guys, I told you to stop running ads. I'm not paying for it. And they're like, Nick, we stopped, last week. I'm like, well, why am I still getting traffic? And so, turns out that I was still getting traffic because I got on the first page of Google. And it didn't matter for me. It wasn't converting because the traffic's coming from all over the country. But nonetheless, it opened my eyes, and that starts the next blessing for me, right? And that opened my eyes saying, wow, look at the power of Google. I got on the first page. I'm getting over 1,000 unique visitors a day, which was, starting to grow more than I was getting from the commercials. And if I had an offer that was relevant, or if this thing was a national card, like it would work, So it opened my eyes to a new marketing channel, right? And so from that situation, the next thing that happened is, I go back to doing my grassroots stuff. I'm getting interviewed in papers more, and I have an interview coming up. I walk into the real estate office, and realtor part-time or whatever, and and about to sit down for this interview, and there's this big old FedEx package. I rip her open, and sure enough, it is a cease and desist for trademark infringement, and I'm about to get sued like crazy. And I'm like, what? You know, and in the situation, I asked my attorney, who I made another mistake of. I hired a real estate attorney, and he did it for free, and he did my name search, and he made sure that I did not have any trademark issues. And he said, don't trademark until you've proven your concept. The advertising company, don't trademark until you've proven your concept. So I was supposed to be clear from the name search. Now, that was a professional service. You know, I think I can take responsibility. I probably should have hired someone that was their specialty. But at the end of the day, this is a teachable moment. You have to be aware of trademark. This is a big deal. Mm-hmm. This can destroy your business. You know, and one little tip is www, or who says www anymore, but no. uspto.gov. Okay, so that is a site where you can click on basic search, and you can type in your keyword or your URL, and you can see what else is out there. And you look through the trademarks, you get familiar with it, and once you feel like you've got a name for something that is not going to have an issue, then bring it to an attorney. If you're going to go big with something, bring it to an attorney. Make sure that you get it locked up. For us, you know, getting a trademark on Life on Fire is an asset for this business. It is a remarkable name. It's an asset. But that was a big mistake, and here's what happened. The next mistake was, you know, I got on the phone with their attorneys, and they said, hey, we need to speak to your legal staff. And I'm like, dude, I'm 26. I don't have a legal staff. I literally just lost everything I had in this business. And, you know, it's to give back for charity. You know, what do you want from me? And I said, and why is this even happening? Why do you even care? You're like this big national multi-million-dollar company. And they said, because you're taking our traffic on Google. You replaced us on the first page. And just to picture me, if I could have, all I cared about, I wanted to get off of Google. I wanted to get off of the first page. Probably the only entrepreneur that's like, off the first page. You know, how do I get off?
Never happened before.
Right? And I'm like, well, can I just get off the first page? And like, we'll get off the first page. And I'm like, and I literally couldn't figure out how to get off of it. And I didn't care about taking their traffic. I didn't want their traffic. And so I tried to negotiate, which was bad. And so, you know, I shared how many cards I had in circulation, and they threatened a lawsuit, $1,000 of damages for all the cards out there, plus all these other repercussions. And so it turned out to be this whole thing. So I ended up having to give them the URL. I had to take the thing down, and they threatened, you know, if I continued to market it, that I'd get in all kinds of hot water. You know, so long story short is that business basically got smashed from that, you know, and you know, the lessons were, you know, of course, the trademarking and trusting your gut, knowing that your marketing has got to come from you. I mean, it's so hard to outsource marketing. I mean, you can get people to help you with it, but until you are at that mega level where you are so clear in your customer and you're so clear in what you're doing, no one will have your best interests in mind like you do. And again, another main thing is from that situation, you know, everyone around me, everyone was like, man, we really thought you had it on this one, and man, you really took a beating on this one, and why don't you be more like your brother and go get a job? Right, and I was surrounded by that. It was all around me. It was my girlfriend at the time. It was family. It was friends. It was like, dude, you're now at this point, after all the losses, I was now like, you know, $30,000 in debt, and that's the point where most people say, the heck with this. This is not fun. I would rather have a job and have a normal life. And it was this belief deep down buried inside me, in like my soul, that was saying, Nick, you're here for a reason. There's a reason why this failure happened and all the other ones happened, and I'm going to stay the course, and I'm going to truly just believe in myself. And at the end of the day, the only thing that sets me apart from other people is literally, it's my belief in myself, in my relentless pursuit to make it happen, and perseverance, right? And just toughing through these things. It's like, John, you and I, you know, we were at that really cool event, you know, and with Mike Koenigs, and the moral of that play that we saw was the runt of the litter, and it's the runt that works harder than the other people. It's the runt that, you know, just keeps persevering and keeps going, and that's the story of my life. And so I looked at it, and I said, the heck with all this negativity around me. I need to get away from that, and I need to plug in and be around people that believe like me. And, it was at that moment where, here I was sitting, it was, $30,000 in debt, and I finally got, all right, what is the blessing in disguise? If you can pull out a positive out of a negative experience, and you can do that whether it's someone dying, whether it's an illness, whether it's, a business failure, if you can live your life where you take the high road and you say, what is the blessing out of that thing, or what's the positive, you become unstoppable. And it was having that clarity and having that mindset where I said, you know what, from that, what's the blessing? And you know what the blessing was that I was going to make a shift into online marketing, because I could not believe that a company could take money from people and get them that bad of results. And, and I asked around and I talked to the people that referred me, and it was like, dude, what the heck, and this is awful. And they're like, well, that's advertising. Like, no one gets a return on investment. It's, quote, branding. And so businesses were accustomed to lousy marketing, right? And so I said, you know what, I'm $30,000 in debt. I lost everything, but I'm going to use the rest of my credit cards, invest in my education. And that's where I set out on my mission at that time, was to learn how to market online. That time it was to learn how to get a positive return on investment. And that was my blessing in disguise. And I could then go to business owners and say, guys, instead of hemorrhaging money in your ads, I'm going to help you make a positive return on investment. I bought Facebook courses, I learned, and I even, got into a mastermind to surround myself and get mentorship from people that have done it. And that right there completely set up where I went from failing to, as soon as I hit that rhythm and I had a real mission, and my mission was to help businesses get clients and get a positive return on investment. Once I had that, started my Facebook marketing company, and boom, things just started to take off, because it was a skill, and I could prove my value to other people. And that is one of these things where, when I'm coaching other clients, it's, dude, we need to figure out what is the value you provide for someone, and it needs to be tangible. The fact that I can charge someone $3,000 a month, and I can set an expectation, you will make an extra $100,000 working with me. You pay me $36,000, I will basically guarantee you make an extra $100,000. Once you can get your value proposition to be tangible, then it isn't hard to sell. And it was that, that disaster led into me getting into a business that became very purposeful, and which set me up, ultimately to get to where I am today with Life on Fire. So.
Wow.
It's a mouthful right there. I mean, not gonna
lie. I want to pull some of the lessons out there, because it's funny, because it sounds like it's, it's a story of failing and getting sued and all sorts of things going wrong, but there are so many lessons there. I just want to pull a few of them out because they're really important. And you're absolutely right. These are the things that learning these lessons really make the difference, I think, between success and failure as an entrepreneur. So the first one I want to pick on is the idea of, not thinking, I'll work really hard now doing something I don't enjoy. I'll make lots of money and I'll have fun later. Because like you say, first of all, it might be too late. But if you don't enjoy something, you're not going to give it your best. You're much less likely to succeed. So, take the time to figure out what it is that you're passionate about, what it is you want to do, what's going to set your life on fire. And then figure out how you can build your life, your business, your career around that. So that is a great lesson. And then trusting your gut as well. And, you tied that in with the point of you can't rely on other people to build your business. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get help, right? You work with teams, you work with other experts and so on. But as you say, nobody else is going to have your interests at heart the same way that you do. And I think you do, you got to keep learning about business, but definitely there are times when you really do have to trust your gut. And, I've been there myself. The trademark thing, I had a similar thing where I got a cease and desist letter for the first company I set up, because it wasn't the same, but it was very similar. And, I ended up having to rebrand the company and change the name. And I didn't end up actually getting sued, but the threat was there, and it was a lot of, so if you're going to build a business, a big part of your intellectual property is that brand name. So, make sure that the name or the tagline or whatever it is that you're going to use isn't being used by somebody else in that space, and that you can protect it. So A, you don't get sued and have to stop, and B, somebody else doesn't take it away from you, who, comes in and trademarks it when you haven't. And I mean, I've got so many little points down here, but taking responsibility, because it's so easy to blame life, to blame circumstances, and it's taking responsibility is the difference between winners and losers. And taking responsibility and saying, okay, what's the bright side? What's the silver lining? What's the lesson here? And using it as a learning experience instead of failure, and then moving forward. So some great things there. And yeah, you give me the quote about, why don't you be more like your brother and get a job? And as entrepreneurs, when we fail, that's what we hear from people is, why don't you get a job? Before I became an entrepreneur, I was a corporate lawyer. Mm-hmm. And, my first business failed after 4 years. I had people asking me, why didn't you go back and do law? You got a great career, legal career. Why don't you go back and do that? But if your direction lies somewhere else, you've got to keep going. Take all those lessons that you learned from the failures, move forward with those lessons, and that's going to ultimately decide whether or not you succeed or fail as an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. It's so key. I mean, at the end of the day, when you love what you do for work, everything changes. I mean, it's a game changer. You're in that alignment, and the great thing is it leads to financial rewards, and I'm a huge advocate of creating a purpose-driven business where, you're giving back to charity and or giving back to church, you name it, but creating that purpose-driven business. But when you're in that alignment, it's like it's not. What I love about the name Life on Fire is that it's not just about you love what you do for work, and it works great, you make a ton of money, but it translates into flourishing relationships in business, both in personal life. It's having time for your kids and for your family or significant other, and it's living the full life. I mean, that's the point of life, right? I mean, it's like we sometimes get so consumed in our days. We get so consumed in the media and this and that, but it's like, whether it's stopping and smelling the roses or just taking a step back and saying, we're here for a set period of time, and how do you want to be remembered? What's your legacy, and how do you want to enjoy the time and your level of happiness? And the way I look at it is that at the end of the day, we work more than 50% of our entire lives. I mean, we work usually more than we sleep. You know what I mean? And you think about how much time we spend working. Can you just imagine you putting more than half of your entire life into something that isn't building a legacy, that isn't helping people, or that isn't creating purpose, and that isn't fun? That's just nuts.
Yeah, it's insane.
And so if you got to go towards something, I'd rather be broke and happy. If you got to go towards something and fail, but it's like, and it's never too late. It's like, if you don't have the skills, go out and get them. But, the faster you go towards the passion and you do what you're good at and you love, that's when things start snapping into place. It may not be perfect at first, but people always say, well, how do I figure out my purpose? Well, there's exercises that we do and teach to get there, but ultimately it's a combination of thinking, and doing some of these exercises, but then you have to take the action and just go forward. And, but once you crack that, and once you have where you're working and operating out of purpose, it's like things just start to flood into your life in abundance, and it's a totally different level. And it's just crazy. It's never been more fun, and I love living it, which is cool, and I love being an example. But for me, what totally gives me life and energy is there's nothing more fun than giving that gift to other people and our clients and creating success stories. That's what I live for. That's my oxygen. That's my fuel.
Yeah, that's your passion. And we live in this amazing time, and it's easier now than ever to build a business. The tools are so, they're free or very inexpensive. And I've heard people talk about the iPhone as being like the factory in your pocket. The things you can do with technology these days, if you're passionate and you put the time in, are amazing. So now I would say it is the best time in history to be starting as an entrepreneur.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've got it's like there's gold rushes in like every different industry and sector, and especially now. I mean, I think, I don't know if it has anything to do with the economy, but it's like money is just raining out of the sky right now. And
I think, people are definitely, because, we're a similar situation in the UK with the downturn, and things are picking up again and people are starting to spend money and businesses are growing, taking on more staff. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, and I think overall, at the end of the day, I love kind of putting the jarring question out there and just saying, if you just reflect on your own life right now and you think about what you're doing for work, and is it what you're here to do? I mean, whether you believe in God or not, is this your God-given calling or your purpose? And if there's any doubts in that, it's kind of like having doubts and you're about to marry someone. You shouldn't have doubts.
Yeah.
You should just know. And if you do have those doubts, then take a show like John's or ours or someone else's and lay down the plan. Be an active podcast listener, not just a listener, where it's like, you know what? You start to take this stuff into action and start to pursue it, because, being inspired is one thing, but, taking inspired action is totally another. And, it's like,
absolutely.
Why not start now, and why not start planning and start doing, so.
Yeah, and that's a key message, because obviously, you're going to make mistakes along the way, but the sooner you start, the quicker you get those mistakes out of the way, get those learning experiences, start to make progress. And, in every group that I've been in, when I've been in masterminds and so on, it's really clear to me that the people that come back in 3, 6, 12 months, however long, with the success stories, they're the ones that take action. Everybody gets to these events or listens to podcasts or watches video shows and gets inspired, but some people take that inspiration away and start doing something with it, and some don't, and that's the difference. So it's taking action is absolutely key. So, Nick, I would just want to move on to the kind of the publishing side of things now, and just come to the last few months and Life on Fire TV, which is, if people want to find it, I'll put a link in the show notes, but it's lifeonfire.com. And tell us a little bit about what they're having that show. Because you've done it's a podcast, right? But it's a video podcast.
Yeah.
And there aren't too many people doing video podcasts. So tell us a little bit about how that has positioned you as an expert in your field and what kind of impact that's had on your business.
Awesome. Yeah, I think for me, one of my skill sets is brand building. And so it's in the past it was. And it still is, it's Facebook advertising and creating brand positioning for myself. I've been that's just been a major focal point, and it's been awesome. So what's interesting is that as far as the podcast goes, I had, we started Life on Fire about 1 year and 2 months ago and crushed it. We're about to break 7 figs. And so, I knew from the beginning, I laid the business out. I decided I was going to model. You think about who do you want to end up and be like, so I said, hey, I'm 50% like Suzanne Evans. I'm 25% like Yannick Silver, where he does these cool traveling masterminds. I'm 25% like Marie Forleo, where she has a video show, right? So I concocted the business that I wanted to have based on my passions and my purpose. And I did so based on modeling what was out there from a business model perspective, and then saying, how the heck can I be different, and how the heck can I improve upon it, and do it in my own style, and do it with a good lifestyle, right? So that's just an easy way to look at, where do you want to end up, And so I started the business, knew I wanted to have a video show. We focused on revenue first, which is always important. We were making money before we had a website, right? Because all it takes is a landing page where you can capture an email address and share some really good content on a webinar, and boom. So we started in profitability, and you have to lead with revenues. And then from there, started in a profit. 2 months later, we built our website. 2 months later, we did the next thing, then the next thing. And, after about 6 months, we finally rolled out Life on Fire TV as a YouTube show. And what was interesting is that was our plan, but last September, which is coming on, almost a year ago, someone said, hey, you've got to meet this guy, John Lee Dumas, because you're both on fire, right? You both have on fire brands. And so I ended up meeting up with John and Michael O'Neill, and they opened my eyes. And this is embarrassing, but to that point in my life, I heard podcast. I've heard that term many times, but I didn't actually know what it meant. I never had the app. I never listened to one. And I sat there and I met John and Mike, and we became instant. It was a bromance from the start. I mean, instant buddies. And I was like blown away. I'm like, you mean that you guys are just doing these interviews and that's your lifestyle? And in my head, that's a life on fire. But I couldn't believe the sponsorship and the revenue and the brand positioning. I just didn't know. And so as soon as I met them, I'm like, holy crap. Well, I already have a video show on YouTube, So all I have to do is just simply just publish it to one more place, just put it to iTunes as well. And so that was, now, of course, there was a lot of strategy with that, right? So I got consulting from John. I got consulting from Mike. And so, so we launched that the right way. And when we did, we hit the top of the charts, the #1 video business show, period, above Anderson Cooper, above Susie Orman. We've got that, we can claim that. The #1 Entrepreneurial Inspiration Show, we can claim that.
Yeah.
And so,
which is amazing, by the way.
Well, thanks, man. And that's part of the brand positioning, is that when you do something, you gotta go big. You gotta claim that, plant your flag in the ground, and boom, we are here, for a reason. And so.
And sorry to interrupt, but the fact that you've done that and been the #1 show, that's it. You can claim that forever. You've got that credibility. You've got a great show anyway. And I think it's going from strength to strength to strength. But you've got that on all your marketing. So for anybody listening, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a book, whether it's YouTube, whatever it is, try and do the best you can. And remember, whatever accolades you get from that, you have them forever.
It's so huge, and I love that you're big into publishing and positioning, and that's huge for us. And so for all of our clients that are launching too, it's like, all right, well, let's break down that process and make sure you get up those charts. I mean, it's not just new and noteworthy, man. It's like you got to claim that category. Just like we're rolling a book out. We need to be a bestseller on Amazon. Little things like that. And what's interesting is that when we came out with the show, as I learned the industry and got, consulting and mentorship from others. And again, this is, you want to take the shortcut and get advice. So hiring other people to learn the ropes is key, but ultimately you've got to trust your gut. John Lee Dumas trusted his gut, did a 7-day-week podcast, and it obviously made him millions of dollars. In my case, people said I was crazy for video, but in my head, I'm thinking, all right, it's not as big of an audience as audio, but heck, we've got a YouTube strategy. We're going to put this thing on Roku, and we'll have a Netflix channel, and we're going like mainstream. Like, this is a totally different spin. MTV Cribs was a proven show. We're doing that for entrepreneurs. Like, I feel
it's a great show. It's a great format. I definitely recommend anybody listening to check it out.
Well, thanks. And at the end of the day, and then it came down to, so how am I different? One, I'm different because of video. Number two, I'm different because, I said, all right, well, I need to interview other people because to me, that's fun. And number two, it adds value. And number three, you create cross-promotional opportunities. So it kind of needed to be in there. But then how do you give it the twist? Well, the twist is we'll do it on camera. We'll do it in person. I'll build really in-depth relationships where, John and I, you and I had the luxury to meet in person. We're doing this. But in most cases, when you're audio, you're virtual, and so I wanted to shake the hands of Gary Vaynerchuk. I want to shake the hands of Tony Hsieh, the dude who built Zappos. And for me, for my lifestyle, I don't have kids, and I just want to do that. So again, all these decisions came back to, will I have fun with this? So when launching, and I share that just because if anyone's considering a podcast, think of those things. What makes you different? How can you stand out? And most importantly, how do you have fun doing it too? And so after we launched, we made the decision that we're not going to do anything to monetize. We're not going to do any sponsorship type stuff. We're just going to, do our best to give and build an audience. And so as we did that, I'm now at I think it's about 4 months, maybe 5. Wait, March, April, May, June. Yeah, almost 5 months maybe. And,
that's since you launched the podcast.
Yeah, so we've done the show since January, but since we launched the show on iTunes, and what's really crazy is that we have gotten, and literally can trace it back to the show, 6 figures of revenue. And so here's the makeup is we've had 3 clients sign up at our $36,000 elite level. And think of how crazy this is, guys. This is nuts. We have that program. We have an application on our website, and people don't just go to our website and just buy stuff, right? I mean, you typically have to do a webinar. You have to encourage people to go there, right? And they were watching the show and came to that page, applied. We hopped on the phone, and the only question this one guy had was, Nick, how do I pay in full? And I'm like, are you right? So instead of 30,
that's a great question.
30 grand up front, bam. And
because and I'm guessing this is all because he was pre-sold by the fact that you'd done all this work, you had the show, So he already felt like he knew and trusted you.
Totally, 100%. And I think that because it's even video too, I think that the rapport building is a little bit faster, a little bit more in depth than just audio, because you can see the person.
I agree.
You see where their intentions are, if they're a good person. And so what's crazy is that the 3 elites came in and they did not need to be convinced. They straight up, credit card in hand. And the beautiful thing is that they're ideal clients, people that I would love to work with, love to hang with, and I know I can get results. Now, outside of that, we've brought on other coaching clients and sold other products. And so over $100,000 of revenue directly tied to the podcast has far exceeded my expectations. We have not promoted anything yet, right? So people, and I'm talking like, at the end of our shows, we're saying, hey, go to lifeonfire.com. We're not even directing them to stuff. So what is encouraging for us and for you, you as in, everyone that's listening, at the end of the day, this is the, a phenomenal way for positioning, a phenomenal way to prove your expertise, but you got to come into it with that confidence and that belief. Me as a business coach, I can charge based on how confident I am. Now, not cockiness, but instead, the more belief I have in myself, the more that I can help people, and the more that gets conveyed on the show. And so it all.
And just to jump in there, Nick, you're in again, this comes back to that point I was making earlier about taking action, because you took action previously with the Facebook business and you got great results, which you could track, unlike the traditional advertisers, where it's about brand building, you don't expect to get any ROI, which sounds insane to me. But by taking action and getting results, you knew you could get clients, big numbers, because you'd done it before. So that translates into that confidence and your ability to charge, basically it's $3,000 a month, isn't it, for the top level coaching program. So it's $36,000 a year. But it's worth that, because you've got results that way beyond that for your previous clients.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, it's the belief to just get started. So like for me as the Facebook marketer, for me as the business coach, when I became a business coach, I had experience from doing Facebook advertising work and stuff, but I had to just come up with the $500 product, a month at that level, and just go and trust. And I literally guaranteed people, like I literally was just like, here's what I'm going to do for you. Here's where I know I can help you get your business. And it was that level. And hey, if I didn't get them there, I'm the kind of guy will provide additional services and do whatever it takes, or I will refund money, like whatever has to happen. But you just have to have that belief to go out and to do it, because at the end of the day, you can't just wait for it to happen. And, so I basically approved my coaching at the $500 level. And it was my own clients that said, as I was up-leveling them in a mastermind, that they said, Nick, you should be charging 6 times this. And I said, it's funny, that was in the business plan, but I didn't have the confidence to offer the program, despite the fact that my own coach told me to offer it. And when they said, Nick, you should, that was what I needed to up-level my own game. And I rolled it out, and we sold it out in the first week, and but again, it's what you were pointing out, John. It's know your numbers. How much can you help someone make, or what is the impact that you have for someone? And that has to be clear. And as soon as you know that, then your marketing becomes excellent, So what's the value you provide, and make it obvious for people?
Yeah, because at that point you become congruent with your marketing message. If you don't believe that so this is a really good lesson. If you don't believe that you're worth $2,000 or $3,000 or however many $1,000 it is for the program, that's going to come through.
Oh, totally.
So get self-belief, get the results, get congruent. That's great. So you got some amazing, and in a really short time as well. So it's March you launched on iTunes, and it sounds like you got way over the 6-figure mark already.
Yeah. And
it's really early days as well, isn't it? So I'm guessing, and this is kind of, I think I know the answer to this question, but would you recommend podcasting or video podcasting to anybody who wants to build a brand out there?
Absolutely. Even in what's crazy is when I think about how, and when we studied why this is happening with the clients, a big part of it was having our own show. A very big part of it was being on other people's shows, because they started to see me in multiple places. And so what happens is you don't really get on other people's shows unless you have a show. And that's obviously not all the time. But what I find is that from a background in like network marketing and real estate and internet marketing, there's a level of integrity in the podcasting industry that is the best that I found in all these other industries I've worked. I mean, the people that are at the top in the industry are just so awesome and generous and, live with integrity and do business that way. I mean, some of what's becoming some of like literally my best friends are in this industry, and I love the environment. And quite frankly, out of all the things I do, I mean, I live for success stories with clients. And outside of that, I love the podcast. This is out of everything I do, I have just about the most fun doing the podcast. And so it's a great quality of life. And I love that for someone that is just a student of the game and studies it and takes action and gets out there and puts themselves outside their comfort zone, anyone can hop on a mic and create a unique show and make it, and we've got proof of that, and I think, and it's exciting, and you don't have to even be the expert. You can interview other people, and that positions you as the expert. So it's just so amazing, and I'm just so grateful to have to discover this industry, and now just
me too, by the way. And I think it's really cool the fact that you've had this level of success already. You've got this great show, and obviously I guess the audio goes out as well as the video. But you were saying that it was it September? You said that you were meeting with John and Michael, and you didn't really know what a podcast was. So this is a lesson in taking action. That was less than 12 months ago, and now you've got this hugely successful show. Amazing branding from that, 6 figures of revenue already, and you're not really even pushing it. So I know it's still early days. I know you're going to do some amazing things going forward, but it's 10 months ago, 9-10 months ago. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's one of these. I mean, I'm thinking about what life will be like in a year from now, and that's where it's I think of the podcast, and as in our YouTube show, I think we're going to prove in a year from now, when you combine a YouTube strategy and a podcast strategy and Roku and all these other media channels, just to build this ridiculous audience. And I think at the end of the day, the way I look at the content, whether it's a podcast, this to me is like my long-term fun/retirement plan. Where this is one of these things where you're building up your own tribe, and that's what fuels your growth, and that's what, gets sponsors, and that's what fuels, a really fun lifestyle, is having a cool network like that. And so the cool thing is that, every few months that go by, I make, I do checks and balances on, on the business, and I can remove things, like at the $500 a month level, I no longer am the guy that's doing all of the one-on-one coaching. We've scaled that. We've got a roster. So I now am operating at the 3,000 because I love working with people that in some cases make quite a bit more money than I do. But it's a consistent up-leveling of not only my business, but my lifestyle, not working past 6 o'clock, weekends off, taking time with found the love of my life, and we're doing lots of stuff together. So it's that constant improvement in the show. Long term definitely affords you that when you stay consistent and you really give it 110%.
Yeah, and I just want to say something, particularly for anybody who's listening who is kind of at the early stages. You can have tremendous success and build an amazing lifestyle and start developing this, not just financial freedom, but the time freedom Nick was just talking about. You don't have to have tens or hundreds of thousands of people in your tribe, as it were. There's a famous article called, about 1,000 fans, 1,000 true fans, and these are the fans that will buy everything that you produce, every product or every course, or get your coaching, or whatever it may be. So whatever your niche is, whatever it is that you do, whatever your product or service is, you can get great results with a relatively small number of people. And then if you want to scale it like Nick is doing and keep building on that and get better and better results down the line, you can do that too. But I don't want people to think that they have to, set the whole world on fire. You actually don't need to do that. And that's one of the amazing things about the opportunities we have now as entrepreneurs to get the message out, because you can reach those true fans wherever they are in the world. I mean, basically, I was doing some research for a book that I wrote a couple of months ago, and there's something like 11 billion internet-ready devices in the world: smartphones, tablets, laptops, PCs. There are more internet-ready devices than there are people, and it is insane, isn't it? It's more than half the world's population is online, and there are a lot of people coming online in the next few years that haven't been online before. But I just wanted to throw that in there, just so that people don't feel like they have to start at the level of success. And if you go back to the beginning of this conversation, Nick shared with us, I was very brave when you share these kind of stories, but a whole series of things that he had to go through before he, which ended up leading him to where he is today. But he had to go through that stuff. And of course, part of the reason for Nick's show, for my show, John Lee Dumas's show, which Nick's mentioned a couple of times, is to help share some of those lessons so that hopefully you can avoid some of the mistakes that we made, like we both made trademark mistakes, for example. So, Nick, I want to be respectful of your time. Do you have a moment just to share with us maybe a success story from one of your clients, or the impact you've had on somebody?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, I think where I'm going to go with this one is, I think, speaks to mindset and speaks to the power of coaching. And so this particular success story is, I had a client who purchased, a Facebook advertising course. You're talking a $1,000 course. Then was, a fire starter at the $500 level. And, and this comes back to showing results on the course, right? So the course was $1,000 and it was to teach Facebook advertising. She then, went through that course and she made, $10,000 by doing a webinar to her audience, and she had never done that. So her name's Andrea. She is in the aromatherapy industry. So she's a very big figurehead in that industry. She's been in it for years. So she does essential oils, and she teaches people how to make stuff to heal things, and from headaches to focus to you name it. And it's a whole industry. And so what's cool is that she's been doing this business for years. And so then she saw the return after the advertising. She said, man, I need this guy, right? So she jumped up and became the elite at the $3,000 level. And, we meet face to face. We did what I call a VIP day, and that's where we explore her lifestyle. That's where we explore the business. We create a plan for 12 months that we're going to then execute together. And so we sat down, and part of this process is to, see where she can save time. We saw that she was, and this is part of the success story, is that she was spending literally 3 to 5 hours a day in email because she has hundreds of inquiries about questions, and she builds rapport, and people buy from that. And so in her mind, that was something that she couldn't delegate because that's one of her big revenue areas, because of the relationships and all the engagement on Facebook. And I looked at that and said, for her being the quote, the guru, the main person in business, that's something, if we get that off her plate, that she could spend that time doing higher leverage activities and delegate that and create more income for the business overall. And so cool thing is that, yes, she has done that. And that was a huge shift, and that gave her life back. She was working 7 days a week. And that is a big shift. So that a lifestyle shift, that is a major success story that you're talking hours in the day getting back and weekends off. So that was a monstrous shift. She took a big vacation. Now, the other shift was that day we looked at her business, and I said, Andrew, you have a 7-figure business here. And she's like, well, I've never made more than $50,000 in a month. And we could look at the historical data from the past 7 years, but I'm like, you have a 7-figure business. I can see it as clear as day. And she's like, well, how is that? Well, I'm like, it's simple. So you did our course, you went through it, you did a webinar, and you made $10,000. So that brought you from 40 to 50. From there, we just need to duplicate that process and lay out a plan and increase your ad spend. So long story short is we created a duplicatable process of her doing more webinars on a monthly basis and increasing her prices, because the value is there. Where between increasing prices and doing webinars every single month, that once she knew that it converts, she then increases the spend. Instead of spending $1,000 on Facebook ads, you spend $10,000. Instead of making $10,000, make $100,000. And that's what I love, is that when you have a business where you can make your ads cash flow positive. And again, think back. This all stems from my disaster back in the day. And for my client, I helped her get to a point where she spends $1 on Facebook to get it, for an ad, right? Or let's call it, she spends $3 to get someone to opt in their email address for a webinar, and yet she makes back $6. Think about that. How much would you spend if you doubled your money, right?
I would keep spending.
Yes,
keep spending.
Exactly. And anytime you get a business to a point where you know your math and you can keep spending and keep getting more back, that's what we did with Life on Fire. That's how we went from, no revenue to almost $1 million. It's because we know that if we sell a course for $1,000, you know, we can keep spending because it's all margin, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're going to ultimately, you know, the cream will rise to the top, and we'll jump in our coaching, and we're profitable. So in her case, you know, she went from the 50 to 60, the 60 to 85, the 85 to 125, the 125 to over 330,000. You're talking monthly revenue.
Yeah.
Someone that never made more than
that's per month, not
per
year.
Per month.
Wow.
And that shift was because of mindset. That shift was because of innovative online marketing, and that shift was also partly due by the lifestyle changes in getting her some of her time back. And so what I love is that she'll be forever changed. She has a 7-figure business, and it will never, ever for the rest of her life ever be a 6-figure business. And she's now, I mean, has more money to make cooler decisions and do cooler things with her life and help more of her customers. And that for me is, it's so much fun to think about. And to think about, I mean, I'd wake up on a Saturday, you know, the day that she just did her webinar, and getting a text like, freaking out, oh my God, I just broke $85,000. And that was the number I wanted her to obsess about, 83,333, because times 12 months equals $1 million. And when she made more than 85 and getting those texts, and then she broke 100 and then getting those texts, and it's just, I mean, it's life-changing, and that's what I live for. So
I love that. Well, that marketing and mindset. And if that isn't worth $3,000 a month, I don't know what is. That's really, That's a great story, a great transformation. So thank you for that one. That's great. So Nick, last question, but very important one. If people want to find out more about you, your products or services, what's the best way for them to do that?
For sure. Well, I think definitely connecting, you know, just lifeonfire.com. We've got, you know, our contact form is there. I love interacting and engaging and getting to know everybody. So, you know, commenting on this, on the, you know, the show notes pages, and for sure. But lifeonfire.com, I mean, you know, we've got everything from our products, our services, all the way down to our episodes. And so we really are, you know, looking at that as our hub. And we're, you know, over the coming months, and it's like we're looking at this as to be a major resource for entrepreneurs as they're growing their business, you know, and also cross-promoting, you know, having a guy like you on our show, and, you know, next event we link up and just doing a lot of really cool stuff and having tons of value to offer there.
I can see that you're building up, with all the fire starters, you're building up an amazing community there, which is great, because, you know, as you build that community, people want to stay part of it. They want to,
exactly.
They want to be, and I just want to endorse that, because, you know, like I said at the top of the show, I'm a fan. This is how I got to know Nick in the first place, is through his show. There are some amazing episodes on there, definitely, because you do 3 episodes a week still, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you've got fresh content coming out every week, 3 episodes, but there's a nice back catalog now, because you've been doing it for a few months. Definitely check out the back catalog too, because there are some amazing interviews, some of those crib style interviews, but there's Pay It Forward Friday, there's Hump Day Q&A, there's some really, really good stuff in there if you, whatever you're doing in business. So definitely check those out, and that's lifeonfire.com. So awesome. And I will put links to everything in the show notes as well. So Nick, you know, this has been an amazing interview. I'm very glad to have got you on the show. And it's been great to listen to the stories, lots and lots of lessons there, lots of insights, very inspirational stuff, and tons of great information. So a big, big thank you from me for being so generous with your time. And also, you know, thank you on behalf of everybody that's listening, and I'm sure it's got tons of value from this. So thank you very much, Nick.
Well, you're very welcome, and I'm, again, honored to be here. Thanks for the opportunity, and you can do anything your little heart desires, quote from Mama Celeste Unsworth, and just really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Nick, let's talk soon, and good luck with building Life on Fire.
Thanks, brother. See you, man.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Three times a week, Publish, Position, Profit brings you interviews with amazing experts and entrepreneurs who are crushing it in business. Join us to hear their stories, the obstacles they overcame on their way to success, the lessons they learned on their journey, and what motivates them to succeed now. Discover how they are using today's incredible publishing opportunities to reach their target audience, build relationships, position themselves as leaders in their field, and profit from doing something they love. Don't miss out on another episode. Visit publishpositionprofit.com, where you can join us every week by subscribing through iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud.
Thank you for joining us. Check out publishpositionprofit.com for show notes and links to the great resources mentioned. And remember, now is your time. So prepare to publish, position, and profit. And start living life on your terms.